Hello everyone, welcome to my foundation collection. These are all the foundations that I have brought with me from 2025 into the new year, and I want to do a quick inventory of these and maybe a light declutter. I'm not intending to cut this down massively. This is a much smaller number of foundations than I used to have. I've been somewhat of a base product enthusiast and I had accumulated quite a lot, but I think I have this whittled down to products that I mostly enjoy. However, I still think there are a few things in here that aren't serving me or I'm not reaching for that we can probably get rid of and condense this a little bit further into just my favorites. So at the beginning of 2025, I had 20 foundations, or rather, after my declutter toward the beginning of 2025. I like to do my declutters and inventories toward the beginning of the year. I know it's usually an end of the year thing in YouTube, but the end of the year is just crazy for me on the work and personal fronts. And so it's just much more manageable for me to do this sort of thing at the beginning of the year. So after my inventory and declutter last year, I was left with 20 foundations. Over the course of last year, I finished 5 foundations, I decluttered 1, and I purchased another 5. So that left me with 19 foundations, just one less than I began the year with. Obviously, when I have this many foundations, I probably don't want to be acquiring foundations at the same rate that I am using them up. But on the upside, most of the foundations that I finished last year were some of the oldest in my collection and really needed to go. I'm hoping that if we get this number down a little bit further, I will have more time to devote to the products that I really love. Let's separate out the foundations that I purchased this year. These are my 5 new foundations for the year. I think the first one that I picked up was this one. This is the Urban Decay Face Bond Foundation. I picked it up in the shade 13 Light Medium Cool Olive. I have a light medium cool olive undertone, and I so rarely see a foundation described as a cool olive that I absolutely had to pick this one up to see if it was something that I could wear without having to mix a blue mixer into it, which is what I have to do with most of these other foundations. I have a little review on this here on my channel. It's a short where I show my initial application and my first thoughts. I will link it somewhere on the screen as well as in the description box below if you wanted to check that out. But spoiler alert, I really did enjoy this foundation. It has a decent amount of coverage. It has a natural skin-like finish. It is very lightweight on the skin and it lasts a good long time. If I did have a criticism of this formula, it would be that it doesn't have as much slip as I would like it to have. I do feel like it's a little more difficult to spread across the skin and get that nice thin even layer than I would really like it to be. I would like it to go on a little bit easier. There are times when I will go for one of these other foundations that's more emollient and I will mix a little bit of that into this foundation just to soften it up and get it to glide over the skin a little bit better. But other than that, I have no complaints about this foundation. I especially enjoy how well it wears on my skin. My next purchase was the Huda Beauty Easy Blur Foundation. I actually talked about this in my video last year about the products I wanted to buy in 2024, but I didn't. And I finally broke down and bought it. I actually purchased it because I was out of town for an extended period of time and I ran out of the foundation that I had packed with me and I had to get another one. I guess it was a little bit of a risk to pick up a foundation I had never tried before, but it really wasn't, I wasn't going out on that much of a limb because I had seen enough people whose opinions I really respect and who have a similar skin type give pretty glowing reviews about this foundation. So I was pretty sure that this was going to work out for me, and it really did. This I have in the shade Latte 300N. This is a beautiful foundation. Now, I heard some people talk about the fact that they thought this was a good foundation, but it wasn't particularly blurring. And I didn't mind that at all because I don't really look for my foundations to do my blurring for me. If I need some blurring, I will use a powder to do that for me. So I initially went into this not expecting any blurring from it and being fine with that. However, after wearing it a few times, I realized that it was providing a really beautiful finish to my skin that was a little different than anything I've ever really experienced with a foundation. And I don't mean to be dramatic. There may be other foundations that do this. I just hadn't stumbled across this exact effect myself. I wouldn't call it blurring, but there was a certain very appealing creaminess to my skin, the texture of my skin after putting this on. I don't feel like it lessened the appearance of my pores in any way, which is usually what I expect when I'm thinking blurring, but there was just a lovely creaminess to the skin. I'm not really sure how else to describe that, but those of you that have this foundation, have you experienced something similar? Do you understand what I'm trying to describe here? It lays really nicely on the skin. It has a really beautiful coverage. It lasts a decent amount of time on me, and I couldn't be more thrilled with this foundation. I think this might be my favorite foundation that I used in 2025. Just a beautiful, beautiful product. No notes. These two were my next purchase. I got this one first. Wait, no. This one. This one is the first one I picked up. This is the Tear Mask Fit Red Foundation in the shade 25C Cool Taupe. This matched me pretty well in the summertime, but I liked this so much that I picked up a lighter shade as we started moving into winter. This is in the shade 21C Cool Ivory, which is a little light for me even in the wintertime, but I can mix these two together to match my skin tone pretty much any time of the year. Editing Rebecca here. One of the things that I failed to mention while I was discussing this foundation was that the shade range runs incredibly yellow. I mean, so yellow. I'm holding two cool shades here and they are still very, very yellow on my skin. Enough so that I not only have to mix in my usual blue mixer, but I also have to add in a little bit of a violet shade in order to counteract that yellowness. Otherwise, I end up with a very warm olive shade and I need a cooler olive shade. So I just wanted to flag that for you, since I know most people are not wanting to have to mix their foundation every day. Unless you are golden, even the cool shades in this range are not going to suit you. I have a full review of this foundation that I will link for you below and somewhere on the screen, but spoiler alert, I really love this foundation, especially in the summertime when my combo oily skin really is more oily, honestly. This one really went the distance for me and is probably the most long-wearing foundation that I have ever experienced. This foundation looked better on me after 12 hours of wear in the middle of the summer. We were experiencing like 103-degree weather. At 12 hours, this looked better on me than I have any right to expect a foundation to look on me at that point under those conditions. I've just really been impressed with this formula, and I am hanging on to it. This is my most recent purchase. This is the Basma foundation stick in the shade 035. This was described also, I think, as a neutral olive, so I kind of had to try it. I really do have a soft spot for foundation sticks, even though they're kind of complicated with my undertone. I can't mix them the way I can a liquid foundation. I mean, a cream foundation can be mixed. It's just a very fussy process to mix a cream, and it kind of defeats the fast, easy application aspect of a stick foundation that is also very appealing to me. This one actually matches me pretty well in undertone. It is a little bit light for me even in the middle of winter, but I could definitely work with it. I don't really have a lot of solid thoughts on it just yet because I have only used it a handful of times. This is very new to me, and so I will have to get back to you on my thoughts on this one, but I'm definitely hanging on to it. Let's look at some things that I think I can get rid of. First, let's start with these two. Okay. My Giorgio Armani. Okay, this is my Luminous Silk. I purchased this one. There was a little bit of a discount, but not much. It was pretty close to full price. And this one I got for about 50% off. So this is the Luminous Silk and this is the Power Fabric. I have the Luminous Silk in 3.5 and the Power Fabric in 4.5. These are very, very different foundations. The Luminous Silk I felt wasn't as long wearing on me as I wanted it to be, and it didn't quite have the amount of coverage that I wanted it to have. The Power Fabric definitely had the coverage and the longevity, but I felt like it looked a little heavy on my skin. The two of them together make a pretty decent foundation. However, I have some real rock stars in this collection of foundation, and I don't think decent makes the grade anymore. It is not enough to really get me to reach for it on any kind of a regular basis. So far, these have escaped Declutter mostly because they were so incredibly expensive. However, I'm not exactly getting my money back because I'm letting it go bad in my drawer. Letting it sit there is not making this purchase any less expensive. And so honestly, I think it's time to let these go. Okay, another one I think I can get rid of is this. This is the By Terry Nude Expert Duo Stick. This is kind of interesting. It's got a sponge on one side that I have never used. And then the stick is actually is split down the middle. This side is kind of a peachy golden illuminator, and this is the coverage product over here. This is a really nice stick foundation. It is a little bit off in color, and that's probably why I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it. The formula is really, really nice. No complaints with the formula. And honestly, if I have a little bit more color to my skin, I can get away with this shade. Where it doesn't look crazy on me, but it's not perfect for me. And I have another stick foundation that is just as pretty on the skin, maybe even a little more so, that matches me a lot better. So whenever I'm wanting a stick foundation, I reach for that one, not this one. So it's been a while since I took this out and wore it, and it is starting to get older in my collection. I think it's time for it to go. This is not by any means a bad product. It's just not perfect for me. Let's talk about the stick foundation that I usually reach for over that By Terry foundation, and that is the Fenty Beauty, let's see, Eavesdrop, what's it called? Blur and Smooth Tint Stick. It is in the shade 6. Now, I think this is just a beautiful, beautiful stick foundation. I feel like a good cream foundation can disappear into the skin completely in a way that a liquid foundation just could never. Even the most lightweight skin-like liquid foundations can't disappear into the skin the way a really, really good cream foundation can. And this is one of those foundations. I think it's right up there with my Salt New York Sneaky Balm that I finished last year. The Sneaky Balm was more of a glowy product. This is more of I wouldn't call it matte, but it's definitely not glowy. It's a very skin-like finish. A thin layer of this all over my face will sink in and look absolutely invisible. It just looks like I have better skin than I actually do, to be honest. And who doesn't want that? Now, this doesn't have a ton of coverage. I would call this a lighter coverage foundation, but I think that's part of why it's so invisible on the skin. One of the things I love about this stick, first of all, it blends like a dream. It blends so quickly and easily. So for those days that I'm in a rush to get out the door, super, super helpful. It also is really helpful that I don't actually need to wear this with any other makeup. I don't need to balance the contrast. I don't need to restore dimension to my face in any way. I can wear just this. And again, I just look like I have better skin than I actually do. Love this product, definitely hanging on to it. Here's one that I should have decluttered last year, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I could not, this was so expensive. This is the Kojendo Aqua Foundation in the shade 213. This has a very olive friendly undertone. And I do find undertone wise, it works really well on my skin. It is a little bit light for me, even in the wintertime. And my biggest problem with it is that it's not right for my skin type. There actually was a time when I was very into a glowy foundation. Despite my combo oily skin, I was very into kind of that fresh, glowy skincare look on my face. I have not enjoyed that as much in the last few years. I have really been leaning more into the natural finishes and the more soft matte finishes. And I'm not using this. It was very expensive, which is what has been holding me back. But again, I'm not getting any of that money back by hanging on to it. So I think it's time for this to go. One that I did declutter and then recluttered like a fool. This is the Sephora Best Skin Ever. I decluttered this in last year's declutter video, and then I had a second thoughts and I recluttered it because this is a good foundation. I really don't have any real complaints about this foundation. However, since I recluttered it back into my collection, I've only used it once, and I think that pretty much says everything it needs to say. It is good. It's just not good enough for me to reach for it over some of these other foundations. I have some real winners in my collection right now, and a foundation has to be better than just good in order for me to want to reach for it over those other foundations. So I'm going to declutter it again, and hopefully this time it'll stick. Here's one that I'm going to keep that honestly I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to anyway. This is my Dior Forever foundation. I have it in the shade 2.5N. This one, I fully admit I'm probably hanging onto this because it cost me so much money. I should probably declutter this one. Now, don't get me wrong. This is a beautiful foundation. Really good coverage. Lasts a long time, even on my combo oily skin. I just have to be really careful with my skin prep, how much I apply and exactly how I apply it in order to get it to look beautiful on my skin. Otherwise, it can look a little heavy. When I get it right though, it is a really nice foundation. So I am going to hang on to it. Here's the reason I probably shouldn't though, okay? This is the Natasha Denona Foundation X. This is in the shade 35R, which is a good tone for me most of the year. Right now in the depths of winter, it is a little bit dark on me, but I have to mix it with a blue mixer anyway. It's not that big a deal to put a little white in there and lighten it up anyway. I love this foundation. I have nothing bad to say about this foundation. I've heard some people just say terrible things about this foundation, and I just, listen, I completely acknowledge we have different experiences with our makeup. We have different skin types, we have different preferences, but for me, my skin type and my preferences, this foundation is beautiful, and I'm so sad that it's no longer available. Natasha Denona discontinued this quite a while ago. This is my second bottle of this foundation. I finished my one and only bottle of this foundation last year, but I was so sad in that empties video I filmed where I showed you my empty bottle. My husband watched that video and he got online and he hunted down another bottle of my shade, which was the most incredibly thoughtful gift, and I was so excited to have this back in my collection. I feel like this is the reason I shouldn't keep the Dior, even though I am. Again, I reiterate, I'm keeping the Dior. But honestly, the Natasha Denona does everything the Dior does. It just does it easier. I don't have to be as careful with the application of Foundation X. I can kind of slap it on any old way and it just looks pretty on the skin. Now, it is a fuller coverage foundation. I would call it high, medium to full. So obviously you will see it on the skin. It just, despite the fact that you can see it on the skin, it looks pretty. It just has a beautiful, very flattering finish on my skin. And every time I put this on, I look at myself in the mirror and think, dang, I'm having a great makeup day. And isn't that what we want from all of our products? It is so easy and it is so beautiful. I'm pretty devastated that it has been discontinued, to be honest. This is everything the Dior should be. I can get this Dior to look really nice the way the Natasha Denona does. It just takes a little bit more work. However ill-advised it is, I am keeping both of them. This one I am going to use every last drop out of this bottle. Here's one it took me a while to learn to love. This is the Estee Lauder Double Wear Stay in Place Makeup. This is in the shade 2C3. I picked this up because so many people had raved and raved about this foundation, and to be honest, the first several times that I used it, I really wasn't sure why. I didn't get the hype. This foundation does something a little odd on my skin, and I know this must not be everybody's experience, but this is my experience. This is the reason why I didn't get it. When I first put this foundation on my face, my skin looks dry, and I can't tell you how unusual that is for me. I prep my skin well. I do not have a dry skin type, and for most foundations, the way it looks immediately upon application is the best it's going to look. This one is not. This one, it looks dry. I don't feel like it does anything for my texture. The first few times I put this on, I was not impressed at all. What I learned after some repeated use was that after about an hour, this settles in to my skin and it really does turn into a really lovely, lightweight, long-wearing, very skin-like foundation. But that first hour that I'm waiting for it to kind of mesh with my skin is kind of painful. Now that I know that this is what the foundation does, there are some things that I can do. I can mix in some things with this, or I can add some other products on top. I can use like a glowy base product or use my Morphe Continuous Setting Mist in between layers to just help give my skin a little bit more life and really shorten that window of time that this kind of looks a little crusty on my skin. But that was a bit of an unusual experience for me, and it was a bit of a barrier for me in learning to really appreciate the strengths of this foundation. Omitting that kind of first hour where it just does not look its best, this is a really good foundation. I don't know if it's something that's ever going to be a favorite because of kind of the jump scare it gives me when I first apply it. But I'm not ready to let it go just yet. I feel like I've just recently learned how to work with it, and I'd like a little bit more time with this foundation before I decide whether or not I want to continue using it. So we're going to hang on to that one. Here's one I can let go of. This is the Light Illusion Foundation from Flower Beauty. I have it in the shade Let's see, Classic Tan M3. I don't know that this is a Classic Tan Flower Beauty, to be honest. I picked this up at TJ Maxx for $4.99. Like the Estee Lauder, I had heard so many people rave about this that I wanted to know what the fuss was. And I gotta be honest, I don't get the hype. I think maybe it's just not right for my skin type. I think it may be just a little bit too luminous. It doesn't look great on my skin. It doesn't wear very long. It's one that I can definitely pass on. Another one that I don't think is quite right for my skin type, despite the up to 24-hour wear claim on this Stay Naked foundation for Urban Decay. Maybe it'll last me through lunch, but no promises. I picked this up because 30 CG was supposed to be a very olive friendly tone, and it is. If you are a little bit more fair than me and you have some olive in your skin and your skin is a little drier than mine is, I think you may like this. This is a good foundation. It's just not quite right for my skin type. It gets very shiny on me and it just doesn't stick around the way I need a foundation to stick around on me. So this one is going in the declutter pile. These two very much do the same thing for me. This is the Catrice True Skin Hydrating Foundation in the shade 44 Cool Chai. And this is the Urban Decay Hydromaniac Tinted Glow Hydrator in the shade 41 Light Medium. I use these foundations in a very similar way to how I used to use my Misha BB cream before I finished that one up. I don't use them on their own very often. Every once in a while, I feel like wearing something really fresh and glowy, and I will reach for one of these two foundations. But mostly I am using these to add to a more matte long-wearing foundation to just give it a little bit more life, or to give it a little bit more slip over the skin. In the case of the Urban Decay Face Bond Foundation, they're both great for that purpose, and I'm going to keep both of them. Okay, we are down to my last two foundations. One of these is a keep and one of these is a declutter. The one that I will be keeping is the Beauty Blender Bounce Skin Tint, and I will be decluttering the e.l.f. Halo Glow Liquid Filter. Now, I'm not decluttering this for the reason that you probably think I am, which is that is much too dark for me. I actually had two of these. I had a lighter one and a darker one, and I would mix them to match my skin tone at any time of the year because I like to use these as a base product. I have owned the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter. Is that what it's called? I've owned that before. And while it is very pretty, I didn't feel like it was something that I enjoyed wearing completely on its own. Whereas the e.l.f. Halo Glow, I think, has a little bit more coverage, and that makes it a little bit nicer as a solo product or to wear just with a little bit of concealer. This is just such a nice product. I decluttered the lighter one that I had earlier this year because it had gone off, and on recent inspection I realized this one has as well. It has started to smell a little suspicious, and that's really how I play fast and loose with the expiration dates of my makeup products, and I really very much rely on my senses. Does it look the same? Is the consistency the same? Has the smell changed? The smell changing is the sign I see most often of a product having gone bad, and I think this one definitely has passed its prime, so it's time to let it go. This is the one I'm keeping, the Beauty Blender Bounce Skin Tint. I have this in the shade Medium 3. This is another foundation I picked up mostly because it was described as having an olive undertone, and this one actually is a pretty decent match for me. In the middle of the winter when I'm at my fairest, I feel like the cool green undertone that I have comes out the most, and that's when things start to pull the most yellow or orange on me. And so I did notice that this was a little yellow leaning on my skin today. In the warmer months when I have a little bit more color to my skin, this matches almost perfectly. And it's really nice to have a few foundations in my collection that I don't have to mix in order to match my skin tone. This is a really lightweight serum-like skin tint. It is not super long wearing on my combo oily skin, but I do think that there is a place in my collection for something really lightweight and fresh looking, and I love that for most of the year I don't have to mix this one. So we are gonna go ahead and keep that one as well. All right. Let's do the final tally. Here's what we are decluttering, and here is what we will be keeping. So the keep pile. We are keeping 12 foundations here, and we are decluttering 8. Okay, I feel actually really quite good about this little pile of foundations. There are a couple of foundations in here that I don't think quite qualify as favorites, which I would, well, the Basma might, I just don't know yet. The Double Wear is a good foundation, I just don't know that it's better than some of the other ones here. And the same goes for the Dior. So these are the two that we're just going to have to see. We're going to have to see over the next year whether I actually reach for these foundations. Everything else here, I'm really excited to use. And I think that's the place that I really want to be with my makeup collection. I want to look at the products that I have and be excited to pick any one of them. And we're getting a lot closer to that place with this selection of products. So those are my foundations. These are my concealers. These are all the concealers I have brought with me from 2025 into the new year. And we're going to do an inventory and a little bit of a declutter here. Obviously, for some of you, this is a ridiculous amount of concealers. For others of you, this is a tiny collection. So this is all subjective. I'm not going to make any proclamations about how this is ridiculous to have this many concealers, but this is definitely more concealers that I am using. And I think that's the key. I need to whittle this down a little bit in order for it to really make sense for me and the way I use my makeup. So let's start. The first one I'm going to show you is the one I'm not decluttering, and that is my newest acquisition. This is the Huda Beauty Faux Filter Concealer in the shade 2.7N Coconut Flakes. This is my second tube of this. I finished my first tube of it, I think at the end of 2024, and I waited until the end of 2025 to pick up a new one. I didn't need to pick this up, obviously, because I had other concealers I was working on, but I just missed having it. I wanted it back in my life, and I'm so glad to have it back again. I just love this concealer. It is my favorite concealer, probably of all time. It looks very lightweight. It is self-setting, and so I personally don't have to set it with powder, and I don't find that it creases on me throughout the day. A little bit of the product will settle into the fold under my eyes initially upon application, but after I pat that out the first time, it does not crease again the rest of the day. And I can wear this thing for 12 hours and it never starts looking crusty like some concealers can under the eyes. Beautiful concealer. So glad to have it back. The one I had been using the most prior to picking up the Huda again at the end of last year was the Natasha Denona High Glam Concealer. I have this in the shade R5, which was a little bit of a mistake. This one is a teensy bit pink on me. I'm going to swatch it and you'll see what I mean. A little bit pink. Gosh, I don't know if that's translating on screen, but it's a little bit pink, maybe a little peachy on me, which is honestly not a bad thing in an under eye concealer, but it does mean it's a little trickier for me to use it across my entire face. I have to be careful with where I put this so as to not look pinker than I actually am. It is definitely more creamy and emollient than the Huda Beauty is. With the Natasha Denona, I feel more inclined to powder than I do with the Huda Beauty. I can get away with the Huda not powdering it, and I have a harder time doing that with the Natasha Denona. The Natasha Denona is definitely just a more hydrating, luminous product. I don't feel like this is self-setting the way the Huda is, and it does need the help of a little bit of powder in order for it to look its best. That said, it has great coverage. It is not drying. It isn't particularly heavy underneath my eyes. I really do enjoy both of these concealers, and I will be keeping both of them. Here's one that I shouldn't be here, honestly, because I decluttered this in last year's declutter. However, not long after decluttering it, I came across, it was a video by Nina. Oh my gosh, I'm completely blanking. I will put her name up on the screen so you know who I'm talking about. I came across a concealer only routine that she put up using this Born This Way concealer, and I thought it was beautiful and I wanted to try it. So I recluttered it back into my collection and used it that way a few times. I really did enjoy it, but then I noticed that the smell on this product had started to go off a little bit. And that is my cue. Once something starts to smell off, I want nothing to do with it. So this one, it's definitely time for it to go. Here are a couple of concealers that I find very comparable. These are the Haus Labs, what is it called? Triclone Concealer. I have it in the shade 24 Light Medium Neutral. And this is the Clinique Even Better Concealer. I have this one in CN40. I find these very similar. This is a great all over the face concealer. I do use it under the eyes, but it's not nearly as brightening as my Huda is underneath the eyes. So, and sometimes I'm not looking for a whole lot of brightening under the eyes, but this has really good coverage. It is also self-setting. I don't feel like I need to use a powder with this one. It's really great for covering up any blemishes or hyperpigmentation. This is just a really good all-around concealer. When I picked it up, after I used it a few times, I realized that it just felt and performed very similarly to the Clinique Even Better. So if this is a concealer you already own, you probably don't need to pick up the Triclone concealer because they are very similar. That said, because they are so similar, I find myself reaching for the Haus Labs more often. And this is also the newer product, so I don't think I need both of them. This one was actually decluttered to me, so I'm not exactly sure how old it is, but it was decluttered to me before I purchased this one, so I know it's the older of the two products. So I'm going to go ahead and let go of this one. Here's another one I can let go of. This is the Pat McGrath, let's see, Pat McGrath, what does she call her concealer? Something crazy. The Skin Fetish Sublime Perfection Concealer. Her names. Anyway, listen, I made a mistake when I picked this up. In my excitement to see a Pat McGrath concealer at TJ Maxx, which I had never seen before, I picked up the wrong shade. This is in the shade LM11, and it is orange on me. It's orange. I don't know that it's reading on camera quite as ridiculous as it is in person, but this is Marge Simpson on me, to be honest, and that makes it unwearable. So this one, despite it being a very nice formula, that one, it has to go. Here's another one that I'm going to be letting go of. It's brand new, but I have not touched it. It's just been sitting in my drawer. And while at one time I really did enjoy this formula, my preference in concealers has really moved on. And since it's still in the box, I think I should go ahead and pass this one on instead of just letting it sit in my drawer unused. A couple newer products to me. Last year, when Lisa Eldridge came out with her little pencil concealers, I thought to myself, this isn't a brand new concept. Well, this is something we have seen before. And so I went hunting around and I found a couple of pencils from The Same. This is a Korean brand, and these are some little concealer pencils that can be used to do some spot concealing. I picked up 2 shades. It was kind of a blind buy. I was guessing from the swatches, and as you can tell, neither one of them is quite right for spot concealing on my face. This one is a little bit too dark, and this one is a bit too light. The one that is too light, I have managed to make use of as a little bit of a highlighter. I like to use this around the brows to kind of sharpen up the edges a little bit. This has become more of a cream matte highlighter to me than it really has a concealer, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it in this category. This is a little bit deeper, enough so that I might be able to make it work as a very subtle contour, but I'm also curious if during the summertime this might be a better match for me. I was indoors all summer this year with my new baby, and so I did not ever get a tan. So I still haven't had the opportunity to test this out on my summer skin tone. We'll see if I'm able to put it to good use in that way, but I'm going to be hanging onto both of those for now. This is one of the older concealers in my collection. This is the Wet n Wild Megalast Incognito concealer. This is actually a really nice concealer. I put it up in a head-to-head against some other drugstore concealers some time ago, and it outperformed all of them. This was just, well, the cap is completely broken. This is a really nice concealer. It is very light on me, and so I have just been using this as a matte liquid highlighter, and it's been super useful for that. Sometimes if I'm using a concealer under my eyes like the Haus Labs that's a little bit on the deeper side and I want more brightening, I will add a little bit of this to it. Despite the fact that I do like this as a product and it is useful to me in my makeup routine, it's old enough that I think it needs to go. Last, I have 2 correctors. I lump these in with my concealers because we're roughly trying to do the same thing with the correctors that we are with the concealers. I have 2 of these. I have the Pixie Correction Concentrate and Brightening Peach. I don't know, is there another shade of this? You can see jar at the bottom of this one. I actually worked on this in a project last year and got quite a bit of product done, but there is a lot in here. It is really nice. It really does what it says it is going to do. It really brightens things up, and I have needed that lately for sure. This is a similar but much more expensive product. This is from Charlotte Tilbury, number 2 medium. I can't use this right now. It is a little bit deep for me. This is much more appropriate for me in the warmer months when I have a little bit more color in my skin. Right now I am at my fairest, and I think this will suit me a little bit better come spring and summer. I'm gonna go ahead and keep both of them. Okay, so this here is what I am decluttering, and this is what I will be keeping. I'm keeping 7 products, and I'm decluttering 5. So not quite half, but I think this is a pretty good size for a concealer collection. I have pretty much everything I would need for most situations. I even have a little bit of a matte highlighter. This isn't something I really could add to an under eye concealer like I do this one to brighten things up, but I do find this shade of the Huda to be quite brightening, even during the winter time. So I think I have all of my bases covered. So this is my new concealer collection. Next, we're going to be moving on to powders and setting sprays and some color cosmetics, and we will be moving through my whole collection throughout the rest of the month. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.